Hey, and welcome back to Fort Francia Bay. In today's city update, we are closing another important gap between the city center and the airport. In the last episode, we tackled the rough layout of the new, or rather old port, plus we threw in a power plant, some silos and a sewage treatment plant. But on the other side of the canal, right where the bridge crosses, there was still absolutely nothing. So I went into full industrial mode and made our city's air quality even worse than it already was. Mission accomplished. This time I built a massive oil refinery with giant tanks, some sidings for ridiculously long oil trains and shiny new oil terminals for the tankers rolling in. To top it all off, the refinery has its very own freight station. But that's not all. The refinery's tracks also tie into a brand new rail yard that also connects to the main station. From there, the passenger tracks peel away into a brand new corridor designed to link a future district with all the regional trains and even the metro. And to round everything off, there's a small warehouse district acting as a perfect buffer between our shiny downtown and the gritty industrial waterfront. So if you want to see all of this in more detail, the assets and some building tricks I used to accomplish all of this, stick around, because I'll take you on a little tour of the latest city update on our map. You'll also get for just $1 on my Patreon page. Sorry for the shameless self-advertisement, but I think it's absolutely worth it, so let's go. When we finished the last city update, the harbor looked a little different, to be fair. But I wasn't totally happy with the shape, so I went back and gave it a makeover. Instead of having two separate channels, we now have one main channel, loosely inspired by the ports of Savannah or Corpus Christi. At the end, we have a huge turning basin with one more dock for oil tankers, plus a network of smaller channels feeding into the river that winds through the whole city. From the oil tanker dock, pipelines carry the oil straight to the refinery, the chemical plant, or into the storage tank standing by to keep it all safe. Well, as safe as huge piles of oil can ever be. The layout now even feels fairly realistic in my opinion, since right here the river naturally splits, one branch flowing into the bay and the other straight out into the open sea. Next to the docks, I also carved out a small warehouse district that could easily pass as the old port, so to speak. This part was loosely inspired by Brooklyn's waterfront in New York. I mostly used vanilla buildings here with some extras from the Northeast American pack. So you'll see large warehouses, some high storage buildings and a couple of low-rise commercial buildings. I even left a few open lots to give it that slightly rundown, unfinished and gritty look. Threading through all of this is the highway, which snakes along the waterfront before curving into the big bridge. Right at the base of the bridge, I also dropped in a highway interchange that will eventually connect this area to new districts across the city. The result is an area that feels unmistakably industrial, a little worn down but alive with activity. Lots of asphalt and concrete cluttered with power lines, decal detailing and of course way too many bushes. Because nature always finds its way through the sea of concrete. I think this creates a smooth but very visible transition, moving from the polished city center into the heavy industry of the refinery and tying back into everything we built in the previous episode. So, let's get to the heart of today's episode, the massive oil refinery on the coast, with all its facilities, distillation towers, oil tanks, long sidings for oil trains and of course the ship terminals for unloading crude oil. Where is the best place to start? I'd say with the refinery itself. I used the industrial signature refinery building and the chemical plant, and with the recolor mod I matched them so they all share the same look. From the water, the view toward the city is pretty dramatic. You can almost see the bad air settling in already. And in real life, this is exactly what a refinery does. Crude oil arrives by tankers and then it's heated in giant distillation towers. At different temperatures, the oil separates into useful products. Gasoline, diesel, kerosene for jet fuel and even heavy stuff like asphalt. It's basically a huge sorting machine, but instead of socks, it's sorting things that can either power your car or burn your house down. I then connected everything with pipelines made from footbridges. If you zoom in, it's not the most realistic solution, but honestly, anything else would have been way too complicated and time consuming. And from a distance, it does the job. The surfaces around the site got that earthy, stained look, which makes the whole place feel properly worn and industrial. For the oil tanks, I mainly used the fuel storage extensions from the gas power plant, plus the advanced pumping station and smaller tanks from the specialized oil industry. These don't actually function in-game, they're basically just props, but at least they don't cost me a fortune in upkeep. I also built a few custom bigger tanks. To do that, I used raised footpaths as the walls, filled the center by raising the terrain and covered everything with a white surface. Then I also put some stain decals on top to round it all off. 3 of them don't have lids at all. I left just the concrete foundations and added oil stains inside, so they look like open settling tanks. As in real life, the tanks connect to the refinery via pipelines, but also to the oil terminals where ships dock and unload. Fort Francia Bay isn't exactly Saudi Arabia, so most of the crude oil is imported rather than drilled locally. Once unloaded, the oil can be pumped into trains on a long siding I set up, where I also placed oil tanker cars to make it look alive. Because the refinery sits right on the waterfront, it even borders some sandy beaches. I blocked it a bit off with bushes, partly for realism and partly because I doubt anyone wants to sunbathe next to a giant oil refinery. At least not until you like the smell of gasoline with your sunscreen. Finally, the refinery is tied into the rest of the city with a cargo train terminal. That means freight trains can carry refined products inland. But the catch is, they share tracks with passenger trains. Not ideal, but it's the best solution I could find. More on that rail conflict later in the third and final chapter. So let's move on to the last part of today's city update. For a long time the main station was the end of the railway tracks, but now we finally pushed them further. One branch heads straight into the oil refinery and the new rail yard, while the other curves off into a future railway corridor. Of course, that meant building a couple of new bridges and this cool overpass. I used the same design with the pillar props like I did already elsewhere in the city, so it ties everything together nicely. It's not rocket science, but it does make the whole layout feel smooth and connected. For the yard itself, I used the vanilla version, but with the better bulldozer tool, I cleaned up some of the extra tracks and gave the curves and switches a softer, more realistic look. Besides that, I dropped in a parking garage and an office building. Purely decorative, but they round everything off, so the headquarters of the city's rail company could be located here, for example. The rail yard though is fully functional and can handle up to 10 trains, so this should be quite future-proof now. And it's always cool when you can locate such crucial facilities in the city itself, instead of plopping them randomly outside of the city's boundaries. The area was originally flat, but I thought too boring, so I raised the terrain to create some slopes and walls around the yard. It makes the whole scene more dynamic, even if I had to cover up a few rough edges with, you guessed it, trees. Thankfully, trees are the duct tape of city skylines. On top of that, there's now an important road link between the refinery and the future district, and a highway exit that connects this whole industrial complex directly into the wider network. It's not the prettiest solution with the cliffs and the walls, but honestly, I think it looks pretty cool, and it will only make more sense once we keep expanding it in the next episodes. And that's basically it. So if you enjoyed the city update, you could give the video a like and subscribe so you don't miss what comes up next. Even though the channel right now is focused on real life city and infrastructure videos, I still love building Fort Francia Bay in my free time. And if you'd like to explore the city yourself, you can get a save game on my Patreon. That also means in the future you'll be able to export parts of the city with Move It, hopefully, like the refinery, silos, or even highway interchanges straight into your own build. Huge thanks to everyone already supporting me there, you're absolute legends. Have a great day and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye. And if you missed the last update, you can watch it here.